It is a beautiful Saturday night in the nation's capital, and for the first time in 3 years, Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend is happening in person, and we are so excited to be bringing it to you tonight. We are here for live coverage of the 10K along with Rob Walker. I'm Mark Sutcliffe, and we are delighted to be back live and in person, Rob, at the finish line of an actual event after 2 years of frustration and virtual races. This is the real thing once again.
Mark, I couldn't agree more. I'm absolutely delighted to be back. And you guys did a fantastic job of coping and creating a great race under virtual conditions. And I know the organisers raised a massive amount of money for charity. But there's nothing like being here in the flesh. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful evening for distance running. It's been a great build-up this week as I walked over the bridge and watched the 5K runners disappearing for an ice cream and a beer. I got the tingles on the back of my neck, and it's going to be a great evening and a great marathon tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely, and we'll be bringing you the marathon tomorrow as well. 2 years ago, in 2020, I participated in Ottawa Race Weekend virtually, and you know, it was lots of fun to be able to still run, and I ran around my neighborhood, and but there is nothing like a real finish line with spectators, and that finish line that you cross, you can see the archway right behind us. That's showing the elapsed time for the 5K that started a couple of hours ago. There's nothing like the feeling of approaching an actual finish line and crossing that finish line after all the training you've done to prepare for the event. That's a big part of the reward. It is, because even though you're running on your own, and everyone's got their own reasons why they're participating and different charities they're fundraising for, in essence, it is a shared experience, because you spend so much time training on your own, often when it's dark, and in the UK when it's raining usually, if you're training in the winter. And it's fantastic that when you get a little bit tired, you stop for a drink, you get a little bit of support or a tap on the back from somebody you don't know, but somebody you feel a kinship with, because you've both gone on the same journey to get to that start line. Yeah, that's such a great point. And there is, you would think it is just a physical experience that, you know, it's only your body that is carrying you to the finish line. It's not a team sport. And yet there is so much to running with other people that carries you along. It's really remarkable. So we're very excited to be back in person. As you can tell, Rob has made the trip here from the UK to be part of our coverage once again, as he has been many times before. You know, we're wearing long sleeve shirts here, Rob, but it's quite a warm night. It's about 22 degrees in downtown Ottawa, and not too hot. You know, it will be a little bit uncomfortable for some runners who are sensitive to the heat. I know, you know, my ideal running temperature is probably more like 10 or 12 degrees, but it's, you know, we've had Saturday nights where it's been 27 degrees, and that's, you know, and humid, and so it could be worse, it could be better. I think people will just be happy to be running. Yes, and it's noticeably cooler than it was when I walked across the bridge from the Quebec side a little while ago. I was a bit concerned about how hot it was, but by the time the elite runners start, we'll begin to feel the cool of the evening kicking in, and they're going to be racing so hard. I think the conditions for the elites are pretty good, and we really have got two fantastic races, and what a brilliant showcase this is for Canadian distance running. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that now, because of course in the past the 10K was an international elite race. There were runners from all over the world who participated. And now it's been converted into the Canadian Championships for the 10K distance. And so it's an elite Canadian race, and many of the most prominent long distance runners in Canada are participating in the 10K, and we'll be able to highlight them for you in just a few minutes. But tomorrow's marathon is, as always, an elite international field. But what I love about this adaptation that's happened is now the focus in the 10K is on Canadian athletes. And I like that, because watching you guys and your performances from the other side of the Atlantic, I sense a little shift. I know that track and field, as you call it, struggles for airtime in Canada, in contrast to, say, ice hockey and baseball and all the other traditional big rating sports that you have here. but your combined performance in the Olympic Stadium in Tokyo last year was phenomenal. I was there. It was a great games for the Canadians, because it wasn't just the 6 medals you picked up. You had many other people who were very close to the podium and produced great performances to get into finals. I mean, Gabby Debus-Stafford finished 5th, I think, in the women's 1500, but she was in a medal-winning position, and I think her sister only just missed out on a place in the final by a hundredth or a couple of hundredths of a second. So I can sense a growing strength and depth in Canadian track and field. And when you've got figureheads, like Damian Warner, and Andre de Grasse, who've got a gold, a silver and a bronze, an upgraded silver because the British quartet lost their silver medal in the 4x1.
Yeah.
I think you've got a great platform for Canadian distance running and Canadian track and field. So it's brilliant that they are the sole national focus of the 2 elite races tonight.
Yeah, we'll talk about all of the athletes that you'll be able to watch tonight and tomorrow, including Krista Duchene, who's running in the 10K tonight, and will be joining Rob and me at this desk tomorrow to describe the marathon. Lanny Marchant, a former Canadian record holder in the marathon, is running tomorrow. But let's look at the schedule. We're going to see the men and women in the 10K starting at about 6:30. The women will actually start a few minutes before that. The elite women will start a bit before that, and then the elite men will be at the front of the entire field. There are 25,000 people participating in this event this weekend in total. They capped it at 25,000. They weren't sure how many people they'd be able to accommodate in a post-COVID environment, so they allowed for 25,000 entries. Some people have run already in the 2K and the 5K today. The 10K is tonight, and then tomorrow it's the men's and women's marathon, and of course the half marathon as well. And we'll be starting our coverage tomorrow on Rogers TV at 6:30 in the morning. So again, you'll see tomorrow morning, 6:30 for our coverage of the marathon, which begins at 7. And then we have our race weekend celebration show, which will be anchored by Derek Fage at 10:30 tomorrow. And if you're watching on Rogers TV now and you want to be, you might be out and about tomorrow and you want to check in using your mobile device, you can watch all of it streamed live at runottawa.ca. So lots and lots of coverage over the next 36, well, really, 15 hours.
Yeah, and it'll be over in a flash.
Yeah. So for you and me, Rob, it's some coverage, a little bit of sleep, some more coverage, and then we're done. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and you can see here downtown Ottawa looking spectacular tonight. The Chateau Laurier on the right of your screen, the Peace Tower on the left. There's the National Defence Headquarters, the Shaw Centre in the foreground, that marvelous convention centre. It's just so good that the streets are going to be filled with runners once again. I'm really delighted that we're able to bring this to you after a long time. Ian Fraser, who is the executive director and race director for Run Ottawa and Ottawa Race Weekend, was hired almost 3 years ago. He was hired in the summer of 2019 to put on this big event. Run Ottawa, of course, organizes other events throughout the year, but none of this scale. And Ian was hired in the summer of 2019. This is the first time he's organizing this event after 3 years on the job, and so far so good. There's been just a really enthusiastic atmosphere in the air over the last few hours, and yesterday as people were picking up their race kits and all of that. So we're very excited to be bringing this to you. Something we should talk about, Rob, is the chase that happens in the 10K. So we've seen this before at Ottawa Race Weekend with the International Elite Field. It's staying in place for the Canadian Elite Field and the Canadian Championships. But of course, whoever finishes first among the men will win a prize, and whoever finishes first among the women will win a cash prize. But there's a race between the men's field and the women's field. They're going to start the women a few minutes early. They always try to calibrate the time so that it sets up the highest likelihood that it will be close at the finish line. The women will go first and the men will try to catch them. And it'll either be a woman or a man that crosses the finish line first, and whoever that is gets a bonus.
I know, and I was talking at the VIP party last night, and the guys who've set the time, I think they're aiming for the women to start something like 3 minutes 14 seconds ahead of the men. So the theory is that they might start coming together with only about 700 or 800 meters to go. And if that happens, then it could be very, very exciting and might help spur the men on. There are whispers that there might be an attack on the Canadian men's national record, which is 28:17. That would require a very, very good piece of running. But we have a trio of really talented Canadian lads who might drag each other around, especially with the lure of an extra $1,000 for finishing ahead of the women. We shall see.
Absolutely. So that there'll be a little bit of extra drama around that. Speaking of records, let's take a look at the course records for this race. Well, first the Canadian records. There you see there are a couple of records that have been standing for a really long time. We're talking 34 years, 35 years for the men's record, 33 years for the women's record. And, you know, the course record here stood for a really long time until it was broken, I think now about 5 or 6 years ago. But there you go. And you mentioned some of the strong women in this field. Here they are, Rob.
Yeah, and what an ambassador Natasha Wodak has been for Canadian distance running and continues to be so. 31:59. Some people might feel she's perhaps past her peak, but she's such a ferocious, experienced campaigner that you can't rule her out. But of course, many people fancy that Leslie Sexton might be the athlete to beat when they get going. A little bit later on, national champion a couple of weeks ago on the track over 10,000 metres. So she's clearly in really, really good form. But there's an excellent group of women there. But Wodak has been the standard bearer for Canadian distance running for a very, very long time. Into her mid-30s, but there could be a few little touches of brilliance yet from her before she goes over the peak.
And you can see their personal best times on the right. Hers is 23 seconds faster than Jessica O'Connell's. So that, you know, that gives you a bit of a sense of how they stack up. But on any given day, of course, anything can happen. I draw your attention as well to Paula Wiltsey, who's just had a phenomenal career and now as a Masters runner at 50 years of age, still with some terrific times. So I'm not sure she's going to be competing at the front of the women's field, but she's going to be right up there, and really impressive to see her continuing to perform at that level. All right, let's take a look at the men's field for this race, because there are some really exciting individuals to watch in that as well.
This could be an absolutely brilliant, brilliant race. I cannot wait to see how this is going to unfold. The three key protagonists are actually not listed there, but we'll be paying very close attention to Luke Brochet, Ben Flanagan and Rory Linkletter, because we've got two national champions. Luke has just won the 10,000 on the 14th of May. Ben beat Luke to win this title, which was taking place in the autumn last year. So he's hung on to the crown, not for 12 months because it was COVID delayed. And Rory Linkletter, who's based in the States, has not long broken the national record, the Canadian national record for the half marathon. So you might argue that perhaps it's a little shorter than he's used to, and maybe it'll come down to Luke and Ben again. But those are the three names to watch out for, I think, for the title. And if they can drag each other round to a very fast time, maybe Paul McCloy's national record set back in '87 could be under threat. It'll require a great race from all three of them, but it's possible.
Walk us through some of the dynamics of a 10K race, Rob, because obviously the marathon, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, has its own kind of drama to it, and it's a story that plays out over a couple of hours. A 10K is basically, give or take a few minutes. It's a 30-minute race. It's very fast-paced. There's you're not pacing yourself in an event like that. It's all out. I think it's probably like my least favorite distance to race personally, because you have to run in an uncomfortable zone and you have to do it for a long time. So the 5K, you're running in an uncomfortable zone, but it's over quickly, relatively. The half marathon, you can't be in the uncomfortable zone or you're going to be walking. The 10K, you have to be in that uncomfortable zone for almost the entire race.
It's a very distinct type of pain that you experience with a 10K. I think it's in its own way, it's as hard as running a marathon because the pain is so intense and has to be, as you've indicated, to run a PB, or as these guys and these women are doing, trying to win a national title. You've got to put yourself through the pain barrier, and you're going to feel like you're sprinting right from the very start before you settle into a high tempo rhythm that you're trying to maintain for 6 and a bit miles. I do think it's slightly harder running it on the track. 25 laps is brutal because I've done both 10K on the road and on the track, nowhere near as fast as the leading Canadian men and women that we're going to watch. But when the wheels come off on the track, it can be an awful experience because if you're stuck in the middle of a pack, you're getting lapped. Because if you're more than 400 meters behind the leader, which if you're not racing well, you will be, it can be an awful experience on the track. At least here, you've got the adrenaline and you've got the crowd and you've got, twists and turns and different things to look at. But make no mistake, these athletes will be hurting, and some of them will be as white as a sheet when they cross the finish line because they're going to have to go beyond their pain limits to win these national titles.
It's you get to a point where you feel like you can't run any further, and that's when you have to keep going. And that's the challenge of a race like this. And I've talked to lots of elite athletes, and if you've ever run a 10K, you've experienced that, and they experience the same thing. They might be running faster, but it's not easier for them. They go through exactly the same physical reactions, their body telling them to stop, that any runner does. And we should talk for a moment about the amateur runners that are in this race as well, Rob, because you can see them at the start line. We have a great shot of the start line there. In the foreground of the people lining up at the start line are the elite women, who will be going off very soon, about 26 minutes after the hour. And then we'll see the elite men, who you can see there, at the front of the pack of all of the runners who are participating in the 10K. And for many of these people, there are many who have run the 10K before or have even done half marathons and marathons. There are some people, in fact, who are running the 10K who will also do the half marathon or the marathon tomorrow. But many people will be running this 10K distance for the very first time in their lives, and they've been training for it for months to get to a point where they can run 10 kilometers without stopping on a beautiful night in Ottawa. And we have to salute that. This is so special. You get a sense of just how many people are participating right there. That's the start line. The start line's on your right, and that's Ottawa City Hall in the background. And stretched all the way onto the bridge, the Laurier Avenue Bridge, are the people who are going to be participating in this event. You can see some of them just warming up now. But this is a special, special moment for a lot of people who have been preparing for weeks.
And one of the great things about a 5K and a 10K, it's a really good way in to a life of distance running. And I'm not talking about men and women who are trying to run 32 minutes or 34 minutes. It's an achievable, uplifting goal. If you can go on a 4 or 5 month training program from walking to jogging, as you would know, you've been around distance running for many years. That is a great sense of achievement for somebody who's never run more than, say, half a mile or run for a bus. To get themselves round 10 kilometers, that's a big deal because they can get to the finish and go, wow, I've just run a quarter of the way, give or take, of a marathon. I've done 6.25 miles. And from there, I love the expression, mighty oaks out of acorns do grow. And the number of people who are lured in to running a half marathon or a marathon because they had an initial achievable target of running a 5K or a 10K is massive. It's a great way of hooking people in to a life of doing different distances in different events, in different cities or in different countries in some ways. And they can form a lifelong relationship with running, which will help make them feel better and improve their health and make them feel better mentally as well.
Yeah. And you can see just a moment ago, you saw some people holding up signs that said 40 or 45. There are pace bunnies who participate in this event, and they run the race at a prescribed pace. to finish the 10K in 40 minutes or 45 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour and 15, whatever their time is. They volunteer to do that. They run the race at an even pace throughout, and anybody who wants to accomplish that time can just follow along and join them. And they'll, as long as they stick with the person holding that sign, they will cross the finish line in that time. So there are lots of different dimensions to a race like this. But above all, I think everybody is just thrilled to be doing this in person again. It really is not the same, as much as we all tried to do our best. And you mentioned, Rob, the money that was raised. That's an important part of Ottawa Race Weekend. And even during the virtual events of the last 2 years, there was a lot of money raised for the Ottawa Hospital Foundation and for many other important local charities. But so, hats off to everybody who participated in virtual events over the last couple of years. But I know there is not a single person who would not rather be in a crowd of thousands of runners at the start line in a celebration of fitness and vitality and energy, and wait for that countdown and for the signal to happen and for the race to begin and to be running down the crowded streets of Ottawa with spectators lining the sides and participate in an event like this. It is so much better. This is one of the biggest gatherings that happens in Ottawa every year. It's one of the biggest tourist drivers in this city. People come from out of town to participate in all these events. It's a big, big part of our city, and we've missed it over the last couple of years. So it's so good to have it back. And let's hope it's a long time before we have to contemplate not holding an Ottawa Race Weekend again. So we're just a few minutes away from the women starting. You saw some of the elite athletes warming up in front of the start line on Laurier. That's the National Defence Headquarters on the left of your screen. And there's the start line now. So what do you think is going through the mind of the elite athletes in the minutes before the race is about to begin?
That is the worst time, I think, because you are just desperate to start.
Yeah.
You know the size of the task in front of you. You know how much pain, in a physical sense, that you're about to put yourself through. I think when the gun goes, you almost feel a little bit of relief that at last you're not thinking about it, you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
So they just want to get going.
I agree. Yeah, there's something about, in the minutes and hours leading up to the race, there's nothing you can do anymore to prepare. You can probably wreck your race, but you can't improve upon it. And so you just want to get the thing started. And then once you are starting, I can remember many times being at the start line, and once it starts, you think, all I have to do is just keep putting one foot in front of the other now. So it's underway. I can focus on that and nothing else. And that's it. That is a feeling of relief, I think.
And speaking of relief, and runners will definitely be able to relate to this. Sometimes you could feel so nervous, you could go for a pee 15 times in the last hour before a race begins and still feel like you could go for a 16th, even though there's nothing left.
Yeah. And that's why you saw in one of the shots, there are a lot of portable toilets at the start line of the Ottawa 10K, and there will be at the marathon tomorrow as well. So we are just minutes away from starting now. You can see the elite women, including Natasha Wodak. She's got the bluish, is that blue or is that kind of almost a purple singlet in the previous shot? We'll be watching Natasha Wodak. We will be watching the other Canadian women at the front of the field. We'll be following them for the first few minutes. They're going to run straight ahead on Laurier and make a left turn onto Elgin Street. They'll run on Elgin Street for a little bit, and then they will end up on Queen Elizabeth Drive. They'll run south and west on Queen Elizabeth Drive to Bronson Avenue in Ottawa. They'll cross over the Rideau Canal, the historic Rideau Canal, on Bronson, and then run down the other side of the canal on Colonel By Drive. And then when they get to the Pretoria Bridge, they will cross over to the Queen Elizabeth Drive side again and run to the finish line, which is right behind Rob and me here in downtown Ottawa. So it's a 10K race. It's a pretty flat course. The one area where it's not flat is the area I described where the runners climb over the bridge to get from one side of the canal to the other. Otherwise, Downtown Ottawa is extremely flat. So it is, it's the kind of course where on the right day you can have a pretty good time. So it looks like we're moments away. There's Natasha Wodak on the right of your screen.
Watch for Leslie Sexton as well. She could run very, very well here.
So we're waiting for the women to start here, and you'll see them begin, and then the men will move up to the start line and wait their turn. And as we mentioned, there will be, we're going to see the women's field for the first few minutes, and then the men will start, and then it'll be whether the men can catch the women or whether the top woman will cross the finish line first. The runners have their fingers on their watches, ready to start their timers. We're ready to start ours as we get ready for the Tamarack 10K at Ottawa Race Weekend.
What a view that is. Just a sea of heads, desperate to start.
Look at that. And there they go. The women are underway in the Ottawa 10K. And there you see the field of about 30 runners making that left turn onto Elgin Street. And there are the men who will step up, and they will start in about 3 minutes from now. So I think you were right about the gap, Rob, that it probably is just over 3 minutes. And then we'll see the men start. But here are the women coming up Elgin Street. And we'll do our best to show them to you. You can see there are a few motorcycles that are leading the runners down Elgin. Listen to the crowds cheering them on. This is the kind of thing that the runners have missed, to hear that applause, to feel that energy. There we go. So there is Leslie Sexton and Natasha Wodak right at the front of the pack, as we expected.
Yes, I think a few people feel that this is Leslie's race to lose. National champion over the 10,000 meters just a couple of weekends ago. She's the 6th fastest Canadian woman in history over the marathon, 2:28:35, winning the Philadelphia Marathon last year. She's the defending champion, despite the fact that she finished 2nd in the national championships last year because she lost to Sarah Inglis, who was a guest. So Sexton determined to set the pace. Cleo Boyd is right up there as well. She had a good run in the World Juniors over 3,000 meters. She's wearing the white vest, sandwiched in between Sexton on the left and Natasha Wodak on the right.
And there's already a little bit of a gap, Rob. There's Sexton, Boyd, and Wodak. There's a couple of runners a few meters behind them, and then behind them there's another gap. So the field is already spreading out here only 2 minutes into the race.
Yes, they're clearly in confident mood, these three. And I mentioned about what a great ambassador Natasha's been for Canadian distance running. Pan American champion. What a great title that was over 10,000 meters in 2019. And what a great run in the marathon last year in Tokyo, finishing 13th, having been 22nd in Rio over the 10,000 meters on the track. So she's got great track speed. She's got good strength from cross country. She's an excellent athlete, and this is going to be a really, really intriguing race for a very prestigious title.
You know what I love about watching runners like this, Rob, these elite runners, is it looks so fluid and effortless to watch them. And there go the men. So the men's race is underway now. The elite men, the Canadian men, at the front of the field, but they will be followed by thousands and thousands of other amateur runners. You can see them there streaming down Laurier onto Elgin Street in downtown Ottawa. That's the provincial courthouse at the top of the screen, the National Defense Headquarters in the upper left-hand corner. And here they are, just thousands of local and visiting runners who just want to get out on the streets and run for 10 kilometers with their fellow runners, with spectators cheering them on. For many of these runners, this will be the first time they've had this experience in 3 years.
And as a result of that, one of the most important things for them not to do is go too fast too early and let their adrenaline take them through the first 3 or 4 kilometers too quickly, because boy oh boy, if you get your pacing wrong, you can really suffer in the last few kilometers. And equally, if you go cautiously for the first few kilometers, you can really feel like a superstar, because you'll overtake so many people in the last 1,000 meters, the last half mile or so.
It is so tempting to go fast when there's all this energy at the start, though. So you can see it's still Natasha Wodak and Cleo Boyd and Leslie Sexton for the lead women. They are on the right of your screen. The lead men are on the left. The gap between them is about 3 minutes and 12 seconds, let's say, if the clocks in the lower left of your screen are correct. You can see the lead women are on on Queen Elizabeth Drive now, and there is a gap. You can see there's quite a gap now between those 3 runners, Rob, and the rest of the field.
And not only that, Mark, but look at the positive way Wodak is attacking this race. A lot of people were fancying Sexton for this job, the defending champion. But as we watch the masses beginning their much more leisurely journey around the streets of this stunning city, it is a very, very aggressive piece of running by Natasha Wodak. Sexton's just about still in touch, but Natasha is the one dictating the pace in these early stages.
Yeah, and I was going to say earlier before the men started, just how fluid and effortless it looks. And that's, when you're running well, it's going to look like that. But these women are running every kilometer at about, in under 3.5 minutes. They're really, really hammering it. It doesn't look like that if you're just watching from the comfort of a chair like you and I, but they're really pushing. But they don't show that labor at this point in the race.
I always think that the best indication you get of how fast elite male and female runners are going is when you get a comedian trying to sprint alongside, and they can generally, especially if it's a marathon, they can generally only stay in the camera shot for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's flat out sprinting.
Yeah, you see that at the beginning of every major marathon, the New York City Marathon, the Boston Marathon. There's always somebody who's trying to keep up with the elite runners in the first 100, 200 meters, and they just can't hack it. I tried running 100 meters at the World Marathon record pace, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even run 100 meters at that pace, and they're running 42.2 kilometers at that pace. It's phenomenal. It's superhuman. So that's Linkletter, who's in the lead early on in the men's race. Rory Linkletter. We did see Lucas Bruchet among the leaders early on as well.
Rory will be full of confidence, Mark, after breaking that long-established national half-marathon record. 61:08, he was 8th in Houston and came home half a minute ahead of Ben Flanagan, who is the current Canadian national champion over 10K, beating Luc Brochet last autumn. This is a really good battle. This could be a fantastic race. And if we're keeping half an eye on the clock, if they are to challenge Paul McCloy's national record of 28:17, they need about 2:50 for each kilometre.
And you can see the lead women now. Natasha Wodak is still in front, but remember a moment ago, it looked like Leslie Sexton was falling off in third place. Now Sexton is in second, and it's Cleo Boyd who is in third. But Natasha Wodak continues to look very strong and is setting the pace here in the women's 10K, looking to become the Canadian champion. What a great career she's had. What a fantastic record she has as a Canadian athlete.
Oh, phenomenal. I've commentated on her at numerous World Cross Country Champs. She was 24th in the freezing cold snow in Poland in 2013. She was 27th on a brutal course in China that was pretty sticky. And then 43rd 3 years ago on the most recent edition of the World Cross, which has been postponed a few times here and there, on a course that had a monumental hill in Aarhus in Denmark. So she is a really, really good all-round athlete. Great track speed, strength from the roads, and plenty of stamina from cross-country. And she's making Sexton work very, very hard to stay with her in these early stages. Boyd, as you quite rightly said, has allowed maybe 15 or 20 meters to grow between herself and Sexton in second. So she's going to need to hang on, or she's going to find herself in metaphorical no man's land in third. But Wodak is determined to try and run the sting out of Leslie Sexton's finish.
She checked her watch there, and you wonder whether is it Boyd that's falling off, or is it that Wodak has turned up the dial on her pace to put some pressure on the other runners. But so far she is looking very strong. Natasha Wodak at the front of the women's field, and also of course leading the entire field in the Ottawa 10K, because the women started 3 minutes and roughly 12 seconds before the men to set up this potential race to the finish among the top women and the top men. Natasha Wodak and the leading women have just gone under the Bank Street Bridge. They continue to run on Queen Elizabeth Drive. In about a kilometer from now or less, they will reach Bronson, and they will exit Queen Elizabeth Drive, make a little loop onto a side street and over the Bronson Bridge, come down on the Colonel By Drive side, and start running back towards downtown Ottawa. You can see the lead men now, a group of 4 runners. Rory Linkletter is one of them.
Bruchet
is on the right in the blue
vest.
Yep. And Flanagan is there too, in between the two of them.
Oh,
just as you predicted, Rob.
Hey, this could turn out to be a real triumvirate of excellence. And who's just because the cameras are moving around a little bit, I'm just trying to establish who the is it Malone? Four still in that group. We've got the 3 we expected.
You know, it's interesting, they've changed to having the runners' names on their bibs. It's easier, especially with a longer name, it can be easier to read a number than a name, especially when they're bouncing up and down. I think that might be Thomas Fafard, who is the 4th runner in that group.
I totally agree about numbers, by the way. I was asked a little while ago whether, in the context of the Olympic Games, would I prefer the athletes to have their... I mean, I wasn't being asked for a definitive answer. It was just
they weren't leaving it up to you?
No, they were seeking my opinion.
Yeah, that is Thomas Fafard.
Did I think it was a good idea to just have names on the front and the back? And I said, absolutely not. Names are fine, but on the back, when they're going round the track, you've got to be able to see the numbers.
So now it's Luc Bruchet who has gone into the lead with Linkletter in second. They've been jockeying back and forth in the early minutes of the men's 10K, and you can see they're starting to pass some of the women now. Already the men are passing some of the women in the elite field.
I was talking to Luc Bruchet in the press conference a couple of days ago, and he said he's in good shape, winning that national title. 28.01 on the track over 10,000 meters. He ran 63.5 on February the 13th in the Vancouver half marathon. I think he's really full of confidence.
What a great scenic shot that is for the lead men. You can see the Rideau Canal in the background. just below them to their left. And they've passed Lansdowne Park. They've gone under the Bank Street Bridge now, so they are, of course, gaining on the lead women. And the lead women will soon be making that turn off the Queen Elizabeth Drive and will cross over Bronson. On the Bronson Bridge, will cross over the canal and rejoin the canal on the other side. So it is Luke Boucher and Rory Linkletter at the front of the men's field. Natasha Wodak continues to lead the Canadian women.
I think we should go and have another little look at the elite women's race, if we can, quite shortly, because she's desperately trying to pull away Natasha Wodak. You can tell she keeps checking her watch, but Sexton has managed to not let that metaphorical elastic band snap.
Yeah, but you can see that Cleo Boyd has fallen many meters behind Sexton. So there's the turn. And lots of spectators as they turn off Queen Elizabeth.
Tiny hint of an incline there.
Yeah.
And you could see when she went round that corner, she put a little bit of an injection of pace in. You're always told to do that because it can be disheartening for your opponent, especially, it wasn't the case on that turn, especially if when you go round a corner, you're out of sight temporarily, because then when the person trying to catch you comes round the corner, they're instantly disheartened when you come back into view.
Yes, this is a climb. You can see that Natasha Wodak is at the top of a slight incline there, and she's going to continue to be running uphill here. She's now turned on to Bronson. You can see there's a lane of traffic that's been set aside for all the runners who are participating in this race, but there are still vehicles that are traveling on Bronson. This is in the area of Ottawa, not far from Carleton University. And you will soon see Natasha Wodak making another turn. She's crossing over a bridge now that goes right over the Rideau Canal. The only other runner we can see in the background is Leslie Sexton, who is in second place at the moment. And in a moment you'll see them begin to cross the bridge, still climbing. And I think they just crossed the 5K mat, I'm thinking. Probably just crossed the mat that is at the 5 kilometer mark in the race.
Well, that would give them, that would put them on course for sub 33, mid 32s, which is good running.
Yeah.
I mean, Natasha is still performing at a really high level. She ran 70 minutes and 1 second in the New York half for 7th, mid-March. She's got such strength in those legs, but she still hasn't yet managed to fully pull herself away from Sexton. But the gap, I think that gap is getting bigger, but it's still close enough for Sexton to close it down as long as she doesn't lose heart in the next couple of kilometers.
So you can see they're running downhill now. They've left the bridge and they are turning onto Colonel By Drive. And Colonel By Drive will take them most of the way to the finish line. They will cross Pretoria Bridge and then get onto Queen Elizabeth again and head to the finish line where Rob and I are sitting right now. So they are headed back downtown. This women's race is more than half over. And if we can take a look at the lead men, you will see that the men are now on Bronson Avenue and they are about to cross the bridge that the women just crossed. So that gives you an idea. There's that lane of traffic that's been blocked off for the runners. And this is exactly where the women were not so long ago. So you can see that the gap between Rory Linkletter and the other 3 lead men, and Natasha Wodak and Leslie Sexton on the women's side, that gap is closing as we expected it would. But will the top man be able to catch the top women? We're not going to know that until perhaps in the final 100 meters, 200 meters of the race, maybe even the final 10 meters of the race. We've seen it be that close before in the chase that happens in the Ottawa 10K. So there are the men turning off the bridge, down the hill, and they will soon be on Colonel By Drive as well. And you can see them passing one by one each of the elite women. passing on a turn there. They didn't want to lose too much of the tangent there. So you can see it's Linkletter and Flanagan at the front, and then Fafard and Bruchet behind them. But all four of these runners are definitely in it.
And this is really good running from Tom Fafard. He's only 23. And we were expecting Linkletter, Flanagan and Bruchet to turn this into a three-way battle for the title. But as you quite rightly said, Tom Fafard, he's just checked his watch there at the back of that quartet. He could be on his way to a very special performance if he can stay with these guys. And Linkletter beat Flanagan by half a minute in the Houston half marathon earlier this year, but has he got the raw speed to beat Flanagan and Bruchet over 10K? He's giving himself a chance here.
Yeah. And this is, of course, more about speed than endurance at this distance, right? I mean, it is a long way to run, 10 kilometers, but it is more of a race than an endurance test like the marathon. You can see a bit of a gap there between the leading three men and Tom Fafard, who is in fourth place. On the women's side, and there you see another woman being passed. On the women's side, it is still Natasha Wodak leading the way with a lead over second place Leslie Sexton. You can hear the crowd. I'm just so... I'm so energized by the sound of the crowd at a race like this. I haven't heard it in so long, and it's just so thrilling that these runners are being cheered on, and thousands of amateur runners are going to be experiencing that as well, and not just tonight, but tomorrow morning. There you can see the scene on Elgin Street, where there's the 1 hour and 15-minute pace bunny. There's a runner with a sign for Bruyere, which is a long-term care health facility in Ottawa. Many of these people will not be finished for another hour, perhaps, another 50 minutes, but they're still doing 10K, and good for them.
Look at Flanagan. Flanagan's decided to take it on. Linkletter in third, Bruchet now second. Fafard has been dropped by this trio. Flanagan is desperate to hang on to this title, and still on the right picture, Mark. Every time I look at it from the head-on perspective, I think, yep, Wodak's pulled another few meters ahead of Sexton, but when you see it from the side, she's still just about hanging on in second place.
Yeah, and you have to be aware of that, but when you see a head-on shot, it can sometimes distort the distance between the runners. There you see TD Place in the background, the home of the Ottawa Red Blacks Canadian Football League franchise. Natasha Wodak running on the other side of the canal from that, so she's passed under the Bank Street Bridge again. There's the Aberdeen Pavilion in the distance, part of the grounds of Lansdowne Park. You can see the runners on the other side of the canal who are still at, say, 3K into the race, while Natasha Wodak is somewhere probably now between 6 and 7 kilometers into the race. And the men have passed under the Bank Street Bridge as well. You can see that in the distance behind them. So it won't be long before we see the men passing more of the lead women. And, you know, I see Natasha Wodak looking at her watch a lot, which suggests to me, Rob, tell me what you think, that she is trying to maintain a specific pace, a pace that she knows she can run. And she's not racing against the other athletes as much as she is running at the pace that she feels comfortable, that she's confident she can run. And as long as she's running at that pace, she's running her race.
Yes, she's so experienced, Natasha. She will have had a predetermined plan, and perhaps wants to use all that stamina to try and get a sufficient lead over Sexton to deny her the chance to take away what would be a hard-fought national title. And look at Flanagan again. He's opened up, what, 10 meters on Linkletter and Bruchet. He's made two little probes off the front here, and this is another good one. I almost love the fact that it's artistically lit. It's like the silhouette, the loneliness of the long-distance runner. Well, not too lonely, because he's got Linkletter and Bruchet about 10 or 15 metres behind him. But this is a concerted effort here with more than 20 minutes run to try and get away from the other two and successfully defend his title.
You know, and you can see that's the area where Natasha Wodak was just running. So it won't be long now before we see Ben Flanagan passing some more of the women's field, and we might start to see Flanagan in the background when we're watching the lead women runners. There's Natasha Wodak on the right of your screen with Leslie Sexton behind her. And they're continuing to run on Colonel By Drive. And it looks like the gap has expanded there between Wodak and Sexton. Natasha Wodak's running a great race so far. And again, this is the Canadian Championship in the 10K. This race is now an elite Canadian field. They made the change. A few years ago, there was an elite international field in this race along with the Canadian field, but now they've made the 10K into a Canadian championship, a true Canadian championship where the front runners are all Canadians. That's what we're seeing here. Wow, look at the distance between Ben Flanagan now and those other three runners that were once a pack of four. He's really turned it on here.
Flanagan's flying here. He really is. He's had a little glance over his shoulder and he'll be very happy with what he's seen. And the other interesting element here, not only if it is to be Wodak and Flanagan taking the win, who's going to get to the finish line first, because there are elite Canadian women coming back to Flanagan, he's got something to aim at. He's not just looking at a bare road up ahead. He's got figures. Yes, they're running in a different race because they're trying to win the women's title. He's got people that he can focus his attention on.
Natasha Wodak has just grabbed some water from one of the refreshment stands. You can see the strain on her face. The gap, by the way, they just passed under the new Flora MacDonald pedestrian bridge in downtown Ottawa. First Natasha Wodak and then Ben Flanagan, and the gap there was, by my count, about 10 or 11 seconds. So that's how far behind Natasha Wodak Ben Flanagan is running right now, maybe 10 to 12 seconds. He continues to look over his shoulder at some of the other runners behind him, including Luc Bruchet and Rory Linkletter, who were in second and third the last time we checked. The gap between Natasha Wodak and Leslie Sexton is continuing to widen. I don't think it's going to be long now before Ben Flanagan passes Leslie Sexton, the second place woman.
He's made a great effort to get away from his two rivals in the battle to be crowned Canadian national champion over 10K. A really big injection of pace. There he comes.
Yeah, so he's already passed Leslie Sexton. And you can see that he is gaining on Natasha Wodak now. So at this rate, I'm going to say it's likely that Ben Flanagan's going to finish ahead of Natasha Wodak. I don't think there's any doubt about that now. He is gaining on her very fast. Look at this. But that doesn't mean Natasha Wodak won't still be the top Canadian woman, the winner of this race for the women. There we have it. So in terms of the gender challenge, the chase that's happened in this race, it's going to go to the men, it looks like, because Ben Flanagan is now leading the entire field.
And look how fast he's running. He's actually overtaken one of the motorbikes that's sticking with Natasha Wodak. The guy was just for a couple of seconds ever so slightly in his way. He went left and straight past him.
Now both these runners are turning onto Pretoria Bridge in downtown Ottawa. They're going to make a right turn in a moment onto Queen Elizabeth Drive, and that is the final turn of this event. They will be running towards the finish line very soon. There's Natasha Wodak, the leading Canadian woman in this field, the leading woman in the field. If she can keep this up, she'll be the Canadian champion. And ahead of her, Ben Flanagan is running away with the men's race. We haven't seen anybody else pass Natasha Wodak yet, so it's quite a gap. In a field like this, for there to be that kind of space between the first place man and second and third place is really remarkable.
This is turning out to be a brilliant piece of distance running from Flanagan, because on paper, it looked like that race could be very, very close between himself, Brochet and Linkletter. And he's destroyed them in the last 2 or 3 kilometres. And they are brilliant athletes, Brochet and Linkletter. They're both in fine form.
You can see them now catching up to Natasha Wodak, but it's been a long time since Ben Flanagan passed her.
And he's grabbed the initiative by the scruff of the neck. They're going to be locked in a battle royal to finish second in the national championship. They're running side by side, and Wodak's been equally impressive. She's now got the gap she needs over the pre-race favourite Leslie Sexton. This has been a great run from her, but how good has Flanagan been?
Well, in retrospect, maybe they should have given the women another minute or so, maybe even 90 seconds. But it's all moot now. Ben Flanagan is running down Queen Elizabeth Drive towards the finish line of the Ottawa 10K. The spectators at the finish line are going to be able to see him very soon. They have the tape up at the finish line to greet both the men's and women's Canadian champions. And Ben Flanagan is showing no signs of relenting. He continues to pick up steam as he runs towards the finish of the Ottawa 10K. What a remarkable performance. Natasha Wodak looking strong as well. Look at that stride from Ben Flanagan. He checks, but there's nothing to see back there for him, I don't think.
I know he keeps looking behind. He probably can't believe how much distance he's managed to take out of Luke Brochet and Rory Linkletter, who are separated by nothing more than a blanket in the battle for second. Keep half an eye on the clock. It's hard to tell exactly how fast he's running here because we haven't seen the kilometre markers. He's already 4th on the Canadian all-time list with 28.42. McCloy has that national record at 28.17, so he's got about a minute or so to go. But he's got a lovely high leg lift still towards the end of the race. He's a mid-foot striker. He doesn't run on his toes, but my goodness me, he runs effectively.
And this is the part of the race that everybody who has ever participated in Ottawa race weekend knows so well, that final stretch down Queen Elizabeth Drive north of Pretoria Bridge, where the crowds just get bigger and bigger with every meter you travel. And Ben Flanagan is now within sight of the finish line. He can see the finish line, and the runners and the spectators at the finish line can see him. Ben Flanagan on his way to win the 10K, starting to wave to the cheering spectators now. They are just roaring, blowing kisses. Here comes Ben Flanagan to the finish line. He has about 200 meters left to go, and he knows he's won. And he's going to come in under 29 minutes. The celebration has already begun for Ben Flanagan, waving to the crowd. There's the tape. There's the finish. And there is the Canadian champion in the 10K for 2022. 28 minutes, 44 seconds. And here's the race for second now between Linkletter and Brochet, and it's going to be Linkletter who powers his way to the finish line. Rory Linkletter will finish second in the 10K, and then Luke Brochet in third place. And it won't be long now before we see Natasha Wodak approaching the finish line. This is all happening very quickly. The top 3 men are across, and here comes the women's champion in the 10K. What a great race Natasha Wodak has run, leading from start to finish, never breaking a stride. A commanding performance by Natasha Wodak, the Canadian champion in 2022, finishing in about 32 minutes, 43 seconds. And here comes Leslie Sexton across the finish line, about 10 seconds after Wodak. And there are more men and women crossing the finish line now, and we're going to see the rest of the elite field. But 2 outstanding performances, Rob. I mean, 2 just stellar performances. It wasn't even close on the women's side or the men's side. It was dominated by 2 people.
Superb running from Flanagan. When he made that second move off the front. He got the crucial gap, and then he was just flying as he was attempting to close down Natasha Wodak. But what a great win for her. Brilliant stuff from Natasha. Well, we said that maybe she's getting to a stage where she's past her prime. Maybe we were mistaken. Flourishing into her early 40s, a great run and another national title for Wodak, and a successful title defence from that man Ben Flanagan, who was not to be denied. He won it in the autumn, and he'll have the honour of saying he's Canada's national champion for 10K for another 12 months. And by the way, it was an excellent run from Leslie Sexton, because Wodak worked incredibly hard to get away from her, but she wasn't that far behind in the end.
In the end, it was only about 10 seconds. We'll see the official times, obviously, in a few minutes, but it wasn't long after Natasha Wodak crossed the finish line. And I think it was only the 3 top men who had crossed at that point. So she was the 5th person across the finish line in total. And look at Ben Flanagan. Look how happy he is, celebrating at the finish line, waving the Canadian flag. What a great moment for him. Just a beautiful night, too.
This is a great, great showcase for Canadian distance running. From an outsider's point of view, I really like the fact that this Saturday night is dedicated to the best distance runners that Canada has. Of course, we're excited to watch the pride of Kenya and Ethiopia and everybody else who've come around the world to compete here in this brilliant race weekend. But tonight should be about the Canadians, and it is.
I love that too. I think it was a great decision to focus the investment in elite runners to the marathon on Sunday morning, and let Saturday night in the 10K be all about the best Canadians. And what a great experience for someone like Ben Flanagan, not just to be the first Canadian across the finish line, but to be the first runner across the finish line. I think that's fantastic. And that would be the difference. If you had Kenyans and Ethiopians and other elite runners participating in this 10K, then of course we'd be following Ben Flanagan. We'd be noting that he's the first Canadian, but he wouldn't be the first person across the finish line. All right, let's go to our own Derek Fage. Derek.
Oh my goodness, I'm here with the Canadian men and women. Yeah, exactly. 2-for-1 deal here. I'll start with you, Ben. You and I spoke yesterday, and when we spoke, you seemed pretty confident. I guess that came through for you today.
I think all I hear you saying is that you're the lucky charm. That's all I'm hearing. So I came in, I felt ready, but I mean, it's good competition, so you really never know how it's going to go. So the only thing you can do is trust yourself. Training's been going well, and I like running on the roads, and everything came together today, and in such a cool atmosphere, so it was a perfect day.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was the atmosphere like? I mean, you know, this has been 3 years. We've been waiting for this. Spectators coming to cheer you guys on. What was that experience like along the route?
It was awesome. I mean, I'm sure Natasha felt the same way. We 5K out, there was people along, like people went for long walks today, because I saw people out the whole way, and then the best part is coming back. It builds, you know?
Yeah, you go over that little overpass, like with about a K to go, and people are going like nuts. Like it was Boston Marathon style. Yeah, I was like, like you can't really even hear your own breath. It's crazy. Very exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the same thing. I feel like the lucky charm, because you and I spoke yesterday as well, Natasha, and you talked about how you love this race. You had your personal best here. Talk about what it was like for you today.
It was great. I went against my race plan and went out way too hard, which Trent told me not to do, but hey, I did it. And then I just hung on for dear life, and it worked. And when Ben went by me, you look so strong. I was like, yeah, Ben, get it, Ben. And it was really like, it helped me, because I was like, he looks so strong, and I was like, just, you know, kind of use his energy and go, not with him, but you know what I mean, like, it was really helpful. So, great day. I couldn't be happier.
We couldn't be either. I mean, 2 great Canadians. Ben, just want to follow up with you. I mean, this is a race that you said that you loved. Let's talk about, you know, the process from start to finish. How did you deal with the different elements? Was it a pretty clean race for you?
Oh, I mean, this course it's beautiful, it's fast, the weather was great, the fans are great. So, you know, whenever you come into a road race that's combined with the marathon, it's such a professional atmosphere. Everyone's gearing up for a big race tomorrow, and you're really just feeding that energy. So the organization did a great job coming off a few years where they weren't able to host this. They came back strong. So it's been a perfect experience, and I can't wait to come back.
You guys going to stick around for the marathon and cheer on some other competitors?
Oh yeah, we're gonna probably have a few post-race beverages tonight, and then I'll be up tomorrow morning cheering for some of my favorite Canadian women. I'm really excited to watch the marathon, so it'll be great. Ben, are you going to be here for the marathon?
I'm going to be here for the morning, and then I'm going to have to take off probably midway through and get back home to Kitchener and spend the night with my family before returning to training. But yeah, the Canadian distance running is an amazing place right now, so can't wait to see the fellow Canadians go out hard in the marathon tomorrow and just build off the momentum from from
Well, congratulations again to you both. Thanks so much for spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
enjoy those beverages.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll throw it back to Mark and Rob. Wow, what a great finish here.
Fantastic. And Derek, it was you. I think you deserve all the credit for that. You were the luck, obviously, for both of them. But what fantastic performances by both Natasha Wodak and Ben Flanagan. And what I love is when you see it's tough running a 10K. There's, you can see the agony in their faces as they're pounding down the final few meters towards the finish line, and then to see the look of joy, the smiles after the race, wrapped in the Canadian flag, Canadian champions both. It's just, you can see the relief and the enthusiasm there.
And the joy that, as you quite rightly said, they got to not only win the national title, they got to finish their respective races first.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough what a great development I think this is for Canadian distance running. And you just heard Ben say there that distance running's in a good place. You had 6 medals last year in Tokyo. Now, I know we're talking, decathlon and sprinting as well, but it's the whole package. I think something, and I hope something is clicking. Of course, it's going to be difficult to replicate 6 just across your border. In Oregon in the World Champs in July, but I do get the feeling that there's an excitement, there's a momentum, and there's an energy around Canadian track and field. And this was a really important showcase for the men and the women to be able to prove to people who might be casual viewers when it comes to distance running, to say, listen, keep half an eye on us at the World Champs in Eugene in 7 weeks' time or whenever it is, because we might be able to do something special.
I just want to highlight the fact, Rob, that there, as we speak, you can see right behind us here at the finish line, there continue to be many runners crossing, and crossing in just now 38 minutes, which is a fantastic time in the 10K, a number that I've never achieved in my life. So look at these runners who are still powering their way to the finish line. You can see by how spread out they are and how few of them, relatively few of them there are, that this is still some really fast running going on. If you can finish a 10K in under 40 minutes, going under 4 minutes per kilometer for 10 straight kilometers, that's fantastic. So congratulations to all these runners. You're going to see those numbers expand dramatically crossing the finish line over the next 10 minutes as we start to reach 45 minutes and 50 minutes and 55 minutes and an hour. Just throngs and throngs of people will be crossing the finish line. So we're looking forward to seeing that and seeing the same look of joy and relief and happiness on the faces of those runners that we just saw in Ben Flanagan and Natasha Wodak. I want to highlight something Natasha Wodak said very quickly, which is that final turn when she crossed the Pretoria Bridge, turned onto Queen Elizabeth Drive, how it sounded to her like the finish line of the Boston Marathon. That's quite a compliment for the crowds here in Ottawa. And I think it really highlights just how much this community has missed this event, not just the running community, but the community of spectators who year in and year out show up and cheer these runners on. So way to go, Ottawa. I think that's really great that's what's happened here tonight, and that the feedback you're getting is obviously very positive. Krista Duchene was also running in the 10K today. She'll be part of our coverage of the marathon tomorrow. She'll be joining Rob and me here at the finish line, and she's standing by now with Derek Fage. Derek.
She is standing by with me. Krista Duchene, as Mark just explained, Krista going to be joining us tomorrow for the marathon, but wanted to catch up with you. How did you feel in that 10K?
Oh, I'm not the greatest 10K racer. I think the marathon's definitely my strength, but it was nice to switch it up, do something shorter. I mean, just to be here and to be doing this for so many years, it's cliche. I'm happy to race, happy to be here, but I still finished with a smile on my face, right? Yeah.
Well, I know you said, I'm not really great at 10K, and I'm looking at my watch going, I think you did a pretty darn good job, Krista, out there.
Well, I was hoping to be like a minute faster, to be honest. I was going after the women's 45 age record. I'll try it again in a couple weeks, see how it goes, but it's nice to have goals and be realistic about where I'm at in my career. So that was the aim today, and I'll try it again, and, if not, I'm always going to run.
What was it like along the race route? I was at the start, and it just seemed like there was this buzz around the spectators, not just the runners. Did they help you along with this race? What was that experience like?
Yeah, this is a weekend that you can't miss. You need to come to Ottawa Race Weekend because the energy is exciting, not just for one day, the whole weekend. So it's family friendly, your kids can race. I've been here with my family before. And then you've got the elites, and you've got just so many people that can be on the start line and come together. And the fans are amazing. Like, people see my name, and they know who I am, and I smile, and yeah, you can't beat Ottawa Race Weekend. And
this is home for you, right?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's not home in terms of how far away I live, but like anytime you can race in Canada with, a competitive field and people that you know and familiar faces, it's what we're here for.
What are you looking forward to? I know you're going to be part of our coverage tomorrow for the marathon. What are you looking forward to tomorrow?
A few people who are having some pretty good comebacks after injuries and illness. It's always nice to see that, having been through it myself. And, seeing up-and-coming runners to see what they do, what the future of Canadian running is. And it's going to be a good day. Weather-wise, usually it's pretty warm here, and that's usually something that we talk a lot in the broadcast. I don't think that'll be much of a factor, but it'll be fun. It always is.
Do you prepare differently? I meant to ask you that earlier. You mentioned, marathon sort of your thing. Did you prepare differently for a 10K as you would for a marathon?
Yeah, so Reed Coolsat coaches me, and I did the Around the Bay 30K in March, where I did get the record then, and for that distance. And so we focus for the 10K, which it's the first time I've ever done that, to focus on something other than a marathon or more. So I've enjoyed it. It's good to switch it up, especially when I've been doing the same thing for so many years. And I've been running with a group in Hamilton, Bayfront Endurance, doing some workouts. And Victoria Coates is there as well, who's coached by Reed. So it's fun to be with the group and try to keep up to these people that are much younger than me. And, it's like family, right?
Listen, it doesn't matter how much younger they are. You're in great shape, and you looked great out there. We look forward to having you join us tomorrow.
Thanks. Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. That's Krista Duchene. I'll head back to you guys. Mark and Rob, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Derek. And thank you, Krista. Really looking forward to working with Krista tomorrow. She's such a great ambassador for the sport of running. You saw the enthusiasm there. She's a Canadian Olympian as well, of course. At one time had the second fastest marathon by a Canadian woman in history. And she's going to provide so much insight tomorrow about the experience of running the Ottawa Marathon, which she's done before. Great shots here of the finish line in downtown Ottawa. And look at that, just spectacular as you see more and more people coming across the finish. Some great drone footage that we have here. We're underneath one of those white tents here at the finish line. So you can see where we're located. But Rob, what I loved about what Natasha said a few minutes ago, Natasha Wodak, the Canadian champion in the 10K, the women's winner today, about how she went out too fast and then hung on for dear life. And I don't know if there's any better description of a 10K race than that, because it is hanging on for dear life. I think any of us who have ever run that distance and felt like we posted a good time, whether that was just a good time for ourselves or a good time overall, that's what it feels like. You're hanging on, just trying to throw one foot in front of the other until you get to the finish line.
I was quite surprised when she said that, because the way the race unfolded, I thought she'd made a concerted effort to go out hard and try and dictate the pace and dominate the race right from the start. She did, but clearly she was bolder than she had anticipated being, but it paid off. And we're getting to the stage now where these runners are trying to beat that milestone of 45 minutes. And the looks on their faces, those who are crossing, is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, we're at 44 minutes and 50 seconds. Now, some of these runners, because of chip timing, they'll have a little bit more. They'll have a little bit more time. That's the gun time, as we call it, not their individual chip time. Yeah, this is a big milestone for a lot of people to break 45 minutes in the 10K. A lot of exhausted faces, a lot of looks of joy, a lot of people hitting their stopwatches as they cross the finish line. The 45-minute pace bunny has just crossed the finish line as well. And he just told somebody he did it in just right on. 4 seconds fast, I think he said, so 44.56. Good for him. So let's recap. Let's talk about the men's results. What a great performance by Ben Flanagan, who is not only the men's winner, but the overall winner in the gender challenge here. Rory Linkletter second, but what's that, 22 seconds behind Ben Flanagan. Keep in mind, they were running together, what, 5.5 kilometers into the race before Ben Flanagan broke away, so he ran the second half of this race, the final 4K, much faster than Linkletter and Lucas Boucher.
And he's taken 3 seconds off his PB. I was waiting to see the official split. I thought it was close to the naked eye when he crossed the line. He's still 4th on the Canadian all-time list, but he's 3 seconds quicker, closing in on Reid Coulthard's time of 28.36. Still, Paul McCloy's national record survives for another day, another week, another month, maybe another couple of years. But that was a really, really good run from Flanagan when he went to the front for the second time of asking. Linkletter and Boucher had no response, and I'm glad Fafard managed to hang on to 4th after being bold enough to go with the more experienced trio early on. That's a good run from him to come home inside 30 minutes, along with Wasilius, who also broke the 30-minute barrier by 3 seconds. So the top 5 inside half an hour. Great running.
Absolutely great running. And again, just do the math on that very quickly. If you're under 30 minutes, it's under 3 minutes per kilometer, 10 kilometers in a row without stopping. So try to run 1 kilometer in under 3 minutes sometime, and think about somebody doing that 10 times in a row. I love, again, I'll just highlight the fact that this is not the top Canadians in the race. This is the top men in the race overall. So the top 10 are all Canadians. That's by design that this event now is the Canadian Championships. There is no international elite field in the 10K anymore. It is a Canadian race, and I love that. I love seeing 1 through 10 with the Canadian flag next to them. That's not what's going to happen tomorrow, when we will have an international field for the marathon, but for the 10K, there's been a conscious decision to make it a Canadian race, and I love the results of that. So there you see the top 10 Canadian men. Let's look at the women's results. And again, Natasha Wodak doing such a fantastic job. She ended up posting a time of 32:41 and finished 14 seconds ahead of Leslie Sexton. And look at that. Sasha Golish finished in 3rd place, and then Emily Setlak and Cleo Boyd, who had been among the top 3 for the first 3 or 4 kilometers of the race.
Yeah, Setlak is a really good athlete. She was added to the lineup quite late on, ran a 72-minute half marathon for 20th in Houston in January. She's 11th on the all-time list for Canadian marathon running. Wasn't too far away from the podium, but Golish is a very good athlete. Easy to forget she won the Pan American bronze over 1500 when you hosted the Pan American Games in 2015. I wasn't here for that, but I watched it. Fantastic, fantastic event. It was a great advert for Canadian track and field. So good running from all the first 5, coming home inside 34 minutes. 14 seconds. It felt like it was a bigger winning margin for Natasha Wodak, and she had to work very, very hard to create that gap over Leslie Sexton, who just failed to take 2 national titles in the same month. She won the 10,000 on the track a couple of weeks ago. And no mean feat finishing second to an athlete of the caliber and experience and racing nous of Natasha Wodak.
As we speak, it's about 49.5 minutes since the gun went off for most of this field. So there are a number of runners who are crossing the finish line now, having accomplished their goal of running the Ottawa 10K in under 50 minutes. That's under 5 minutes per kilometer. Congratulations to the thousands of runners who are completing this distance tonight. There have already been people participating in the 5K and the 2K, and tomorrow we'll have the marathon and the half marathon. And by the way, our coverage begins tomorrow morning at 6:30 with the race starting at 7 o'clock. The marathon starting at 7, the half marathon starts at 9. So you can see the runners crossing the finish line now. There's that logo of the Peace Tower on the finish line right above the clock. And this is just such a great moment for so many of these runners to be completing this race in 50 minutes or thereabouts. Many of these runners will have finished in 50 minutes, even though the clock is higher than 50 minutes, because they will have started further back from the start line when the gun went off. Rob, I want to highlight again, you've touched on this a few times already, but it seemed like every interview that Derek did at the finish there, people were highlighting the state of running in Canada, of distance running in this country now. And there's a level of enthusiasm and excitement about that among the athletes. Krista Duchene, Natasha Wodak, Ben Flanagan. You could hear it in their voices, just how excited they are about how the sport has taken off, distance running has taken off in this country, how many elite runners there are, how many great performances there have been.
You're in great shape, and I wonder whether there are some parallels here. A few years ago, we started to see almost an explosion of brilliant female American middle distance runners, 8 and 1500. And success breeds success. One or two people just having to get a little bit of support from the excellent medical team here on hand for the Tamarack race weekend. I think she'll be okay. Maybe a beverage, maybe an alcoholic beverage or a glass of milk, something. But
at a minimum, some water.
But it's amazing. You only need 2 or 3. I mean, look at that trio, Bruchet and Flanagan and Linkletter, pulling each other round. Flanagan, of course, taking the title, but they're going to have some great battles, those 3, in the months and years to come. And you just start to sense the momentum. Plus, you've got the added impact of everyone being so delighted to be part of this spectacle again, with thousands of people lining the route, hundreds of runners coming across the line at these slightly slower times, shoulder to shoulder and side by side, in spirit and literally. So the whole thing is moving in the right direction. And I do think if we can have a few more of these scenarios where it's Canadian only focus for these national championships, that will only serve to continue to help even more. And again, from an outsider's point of view, Mark, you've said go Ottawa. This is a brilliant city. To come here and see the energy and the love and the knowledge and the passion that people from this area have for distance running and for mass participation sport is fantastic. It's such an open-minded, clean, welcoming place. And from the point of view of somebody coming over from the UK for 4 days, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, Rob, and great to have that perspective. And you're seeing here many of the amateur runners who are participating in the Ottawa 10K tonight, and they are among 25,000 runners who are participating this weekend. Again, 2 years ago, 0. Last year, 0. This year, 25,000 people participating in an in-person event. Of course, the last 2 years, there were virtual events, people running on their own in neighborhoods throughout Ottawa and elsewhere, but it's not the same. This is special. For the first time in 3 years, thousands of runners taking the streets together in downtown Ottawa. And it's just so great to watch. They could have had more runners. They capped it at 25,000. It was sold out at that number. They wanted to keep the number manageable for the first event back. Who knows what might have happened with new variants of COVID, all protocols that might be required. So they wanted to keep it manageable, and they did. But the result is phenomenal. And you're seeing it right now. These amateur runners racing to the finish line, completing their goal, accomplishing something in many cases they never thought they could do, to run 10 kilometers in a race like this. So congratulations to all of them. Something Natasha touched on, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of time to talk about this tomorrow during our coverage of the marathon, Rob, but it was interesting to hear, you spoke about it early on, just the psychology of running and being around other runners. She talked about the energy she got from seeing Ben Flanagan running so well and passing her, and how that spurred her on to keep going and make it to the finish line. That's what this is all about for the elite runners and the amateur runners. It is an individual sport, and there is nothing but your own physical power that moves you towards the finish line. But there is something so deeply psychological about competing in a race like this, and about the energy you get from other runners.
I just think there's an affinity between runners, because people who don't get it, and I understand why, people who don't love running might not appreciate, but you've just got that mark of respect. It's the old adage, and I'm sure it's exactly the same here in Canada as it is in the UK. No matter what time of day or night it is, if you're running one way down a street or a footpath and there's a runner coming the other way, even if you don't know them, there's a nod and a hello, and there's a look that you exchange between you, and it just says, I know what you go through and you know what I go through. And when you get thousands of runners, tens of thousands in the case of this race weekend, all in the same place at the same time, that spirit permeates through to the crowd, who have maybe got no intention of ever doing a run. But I tell you what, they might do when they've stood there and looked at the people going past them and think, hang on a minute, I could do that. Why not me?
And I think we're going to see even more of that tomorrow, because there is, as you know, there is so much more time for that camaraderie, for that that shared spirit in a marathon than there is in a 10K. This is all over very quickly in a 10K. But in the marathon, you see a lot more fellowship, a lot more support, a lot more talking amongst the runners. We're going to see a lot of that tomorrow. So excited to have brought you the 10K tonight. Again, to recap, Ben Flanagan, the men's winner, he also took the gender challenge. They started the men about 3 minutes and 12 seconds after the women, but he passed Natasha Wodak. The women's winner, they are the Canadian champions, and the winners of this race, Natasha Wodak and Ben Flanagan. Congratulations to them. Some great performances as well from some of the other elite members of the field. And let's talk about tomorrow very quickly, Rob. We're going to see an international elite field tomorrow in the men's and women's marathon, and we're really looking forward to sharing it.
They will be two brilliant races. If this was the starter, the main course is going to be a feast of distance running, not to be missed.
So join us tomorrow morning, won't you? We'll start at 6:30. The race starts at 7. For Rob and our entire Rogers TV team, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow morning for the marathon.
Pursuing a career in third language journalism.
I am very grateful to be one of the recipients of the Omni TV Scholarship. This scholarship gave me hope. It made me see that there is space for people like me in the media industry.
Omni is home to a variety of locally produced current affairs programs and daily national newscasts, broadcast in 6 languages. To learn more about Omni scholarships, visit omnitv.ca/scholarships.
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, what is Electro Sport RC? Well, it's likely something that'll be a lot of fun for all ages. We'll tell you exactly why. And the Ottawa Pop Orchestra is coming up with their video game symphony. We'll give you all the details on that. And of course, lots of events happening in the city throughout the spring and summer. We'll share a couple of them with you. All that and more on Monday's Daytime Ottawa, right here on Rogers TV.